What if the biggest story of the 2026 Formula One season hasn't even happened yet? Because after a wild first half of the year, we're heading into the part of the season where championships are won, careers can change overnight, struggling teams either recover or collapse, and one surprise result can completely reshape the grid. Kimi Antonelli has a real chance to become the youngest Formula One world champion in history. Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull are closing in on Mercedes. Aston Martin and Williams are fighting to rescue their seasons. Formula One is preparing for a dramatic return to Malaysia, and behind the scenes, the 2027 driver market could become absolute chaos. So today, we're breaking down the 5 biggest stories to watch during the second half of the 2026 Formula One season. And trust me, number 5 could completely change what the grid looks like next year. Let's get into it. We have to start with the biggest story of all, Kimi Antonelli. Before the season began, Mercedes were widely expected to be strong under the new 2026 regulations. But what very few people expected was Antonelli becoming the driver leading their championship charge, and not just leading Mercedes, leading the entire Formula One World Championship. Antonelli took his first Grand Prix victory in China. Then, only 2 weeks later, he won again in Japan. That second victory made him the youngest driver ever to lead the Formula One World Championship standings. And instead of fading away after a hot start, he kept winning. By the summer break, Antonelli had already collected 6 victories. Yes, 6. For a driver still at the beginning of his Formula One career, that is an extraordinary achievement. But what might be even more impressive is how well he has handled the difficult weekends. Not every race has gone perfectly. He suffered a DNF in Barcelona, and there have been races where Mercedes did not have the strongest package. But championship seasons are not only about winning when your car is perfect, they are about collecting points when things go wrong. That is exactly what Antonelli has been doing. Heading into the summer break, he holds a 50-point advantage over Lewis Hamilton. George Russell sits another 6 points behind Hamilton. That gives Antonelli a very strong position, but there is still a long way to go, and this is where the pressure becomes completely different. Winning races is one thing. Protecting a championship lead for months is another. Every mistake gets magnified. Every qualifying session becomes more important. Every mechanical failure suddenly feels huge. And every time Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, Norris, or Verstappen finishes ahead of him, people will start asking whether the championship is slipping away. If Antonelli can maintain his consistency and eventually win the championship, he would become the youngest Formula One world champion ever. That record currently belongs to Sebastian Vettel. So we could genuinely be watching Formula One history happening in real time. The question is simple. Can Antonelli finish the job? Mercedes may be leading, but the championship is definitely not finished. Because Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull are beginning to make things much more interesting. Earlier in the season, Mercedes looked like the benchmark. But as the year has progressed, the gap has started to shrink. Ferrari were the first team outside Mercedes to win a race in 2026, and it came from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton finally delivered his first Grand Prix victory in Ferrari Red at Barcelona. That alone was a massive moment. But Ferrari did not stop there. Charles Leclerc later won at Silverstone, showing that Ferrari's progress was not just about one driver or one unusual weekend. Then McLaren arrived in Hungary, looking increasingly dangerous. Lando Norris took victory there, his first win since becoming world champion. And suddenly, another team was back in the conversation. Then there is Red Bull. Max Verstappen has not dominated 2026 like we have seen during some previous seasons, but Red Bull have gradually shown signs of improvement. Verstappen finished 3rd in Belgium and then 2nd at the Hungaroring. That is important, because if Red Bull continue moving forward, Verstappen could become a major problem for the championship contenders during the second half. And this might not simply come down to driver performance. Development could decide everything. Antonelli himself has already described 2026 as a development race. That means whoever brings the best upgrades may gain the advantage. Ferrari could suddenly find 2 or 3 tenths. McLaren could unlock more performance. Mercedes could respond. Red Bull could bring a package that transforms their car. And when the field is already close, a small improvement can completely change the competitive order. Imagine heading into the final few races with Antonelli still leading the championship, Hamilton closing the gap, Russell still mathematically alive, Ferrari winning races, McLaren stealing victories, and Verstappen taking points away from everyone. That is exactly the kind of scenario that can create an unforgettable championship finish. So while Antonelli has the advantage right now, nobody should assume this championship is over, not even close. Now we move away from the front and look at 2 teams facing a completely different challenge: Aston Martin and Williams. Both entered 2026 hoping to move forward. Instead, both have spent much of the first half trying to recover from major problems. Let's start with Aston Martin. Their season started badly during pre-season testing. Reliability problems limited their mileage, which meant the team entered the opening races already behind. And the issues continued. Aston Martin failed to complete a full race distance during the opening 2 rounds. That is a nightmare situation when everyone else is learning and developing brand new cars. Even once the reliability improved, the performance still was not where Aston Martin wanted it to be. But Hungary finally delivered some hope. A significant upgrade package appeared to move the team forward. And there could be more coming. Honda is expected to bring further updates around the Dutch Grand Prix. That makes Aston Martin one of the most interesting teams to watch after the break. Are they finally beginning to understand their car? Or was Hungary simply a circuit that suited them? The next few races should tell us. And then there is Williams. Their situation is equally frustrating. Williams finished 5th in the Constructors' Championship last season. That felt like real progress. But in 2026, they have dropped back to 9th. Their problems started before the season even began. Delays with the FW48 program meant Williams missed the Barcelona shakedown and immediately found themselves playing catch-up. And when the regulations are completely new, losing testing mileage is extremely expensive. You lose setup knowledge, you lose reliability data, you lose development information, and while you are trying to understand your car, your rivals are already improving theirs. Williams are reportedly targeting a significant upgrade around the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in late September. That upgrade could be absolutely critical, because if it works, they may still have enough races to recover some positions. But if it does not work, Williams could be staring at a very difficult second half. For both Aston Martin and Williams, this part of the season is about more than individual race results. It is about proving that their technical direction is working. And now we reach one of the most exciting stories on the calendar. Formula One is going back to Malaysia. Sepang International Circuit will host Formula One again in October. And for longtime F1 fans, this is a huge deal. Sepang first appeared on the Formula One calendar in 1999, and for years it became famous for one very simple reason. Anything could happen there. The track itself is fantastic. You have fast corners, long straights, heavy braking zones, plenty of overtaking opportunities, and then you have the Malaysian weather, heat, humidity, and potentially unpredictable rain. That combination has created some unforgettable races over the years. Formula One last raced at Sepang in 2017, and the winner that day was Max Verstappen. What is crazy is that the victory was only the second Grand Prix win of Verstappen's career. Look at where he is now. By the 2026 season, Verstappen has built an enormous career win total. So returning to the circuit where one of his earliest victories happened adds another interesting layer to the weekend. But the bigger question is what these new 2026 cars will look like around Sepang. We have never seen this generation of Formula One machinery race there. The long straights could make energy management extremely important. The fast corners will test aerodynamic balance. The braking zones should create opportunities for overtaking. And if rain appears, Forget every prediction you made before the race. Malaysia could become one of the most unpredictable events of the entire season, and depending on the championship situation by October, it could also become one of the most important. Imagine Antonelli and Hamilton fighting for the title while rain starts falling at Sepang. That is the kind of Formula One drama fans have been waiting years to see return. And finally, we arrive at the story that could shape Formula One far beyond this season, the 2027 driver market. This is where things could get very interesting. Several teams still have questions surrounding their future lineups. Mercedes are one of the biggest names involved. The team has not fully announced its 2027 pairing, although Toto Wolff has suggested Mercedes are happy with their current situation. If Antonelli wins the championship, you would imagine one side of that garage becomes extremely easy to decide, but there could still be movement elsewhere. Then there is Max Verstappen. Verstappen is contracted to Red Bull through the end of 2028. But that has not stopped speculation about his long-term future. Whenever a driver of Verstappen's quality is even slightly connected with another team, the entire market begins reacting. Because if Verstappen were ever to move, somebody else would lose a seat. That driver would then become available. Another team would sign them, and suddenly you have a domino effect across the entire grid. Then there is Fernando Alonso. His Aston Martin contract is due to expire after 2026. So the big question is whether Alonso wants to continue. He remains one of the most experienced and respected drivers in the sport. But at this stage of his career, he will obviously want to know whether Aston Martin can give him a competitive car. If the upgrades work and the team starts moving forward, perhaps staying becomes more attractive. If Aston Martin continues struggling, maybe the conversation changes. And Alonso is not the only driver with uncertainty around his future. Williams, Racing Bulls, Haas, and Audi still have decisions to make regarding future driver combinations. Alpine also have questions around whether Franco Colapinto will continue alongside Pierre Gasly. So the second half of 2026 could become a giant audition. Every qualifying session matters. Every race result matters. Every mistake matters. Because drivers are not only fighting for championship points, some of them are fighting for their Formula One future. And that is why I think the second half of the 2026 Formula One season could actually be even better than the first. Kimi Antonelli is chasing history. Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and the chasing pack are trying to stop him. Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull are developing fast. Aston Martin and Williams desperately need their upgrades to work. Sepang is returning to the calendar. And the driver market is waiting for one major move to set everything in motion. The summer break might be quiet, but once Formula One returns, things could change extremely quickly. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Kimi Antonelli will become the 2026 Formula One World Champion? Or do you think Hamilton, Russell, Ferrari, McLaren, or even Verstappen can turn this championship around? And which of these 5 storylines are you most excited about? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe to Racecraft Explained, and turn on notifications because we'll be covering the biggest stories from the second half of the 2026 Formula One season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.